The sky above the planet Zyros was dark red, like a storm was always coming. The wind howled across the rocky ground, and strange trees twisted toward the sky like they were trying to escape the world below. This was no place for the weak. Zyros was known across the stars as a test world, a brutal training ground built by the Lithari, one of the oldest and most advanced alien races in the galaxy. The Lithari were tall, thin beings with pale skin and large eyes that could see more colors than most species. They lived for hundreds of years and had minds that could touch each other without speaking. To them, violence was ancient history, and survival was studied like art or science. That's why they built Zyros, not to hurt anyone, but to understand what made some beings able to live where others would die. Today was an important day on Zyros. A small human ship had arrived from Earth, carrying 6 humans who were about to begin the Lithari's famous 100-year survival course. The Lithari had tested many species before, but none quite like these humans. Earth was known among the stars as a death world, not because it was deadly on purpose, but because life there had to fight so hard just to stay alive. Storms, animals, even other humans, all of it made Earth a rough place. So when the humans asked to take the survival course, the Lithari were curious and a little doubtful. The 6 humans stepped off their ship one by one. Their names were Kyle Morgan, Lisa Andrews, Randy Porter, Dana Brooks, Jason Cole, and Tanya Moore. None of them were soldiers or scientists. They were regular people chosen for being strong, smart, and calm under pressure. Some had worked in construction, others in schools or hospitals, but all of them had something else. A quiet confidence like they'd already faced tough things and kept going. The Lithari greeted them through a translator drone that hovered near the group. Its voice was soft and clear. "Welcome to Zyros," it said. "You are the first humans to attempt the full survival course. You will be given only basic tools and must rely on your own skills to survive." Lisa, the tallest of the group, stepped forward. "We're ready," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp, looking around at the wild land. A Lithari named Virel stepped forward. He was the lead instructor for this round of the course. His pale face showed no emotion, but his mind buzzed with thoughts. He had seen many species fail on Zyros. Some gave up after the first night. Others didn't last that long. He looked at the humans again. They stood together, shoulders back, eyes wide with curiosity. Not fear. Curiosity. "You will be tested over time," Virel said through the translator. "Each phase of the course takes years to complete. You must survive jungle, desert, tundra, swamp, and psychic zones. If you succeed, you will have proven extreme adaptability." Kyle raised an eyebrow. "So, we'll be here a while?" "Yes," Virel replied. 100 years. The group exchanged quick glances. No one looked surprised. "That's a long time," Dana said with a small smile. She was the youngest of the team, maybe early 20s, with short hair and a steady gaze. Virel tilted his head slightly. "It is standard for the course. Most species need decades to learn survival techniques. Many do not finish." Jason crossed his arms. "We'll see about that." The Lithari did not respond. Instead, they led the humans to a flat area near the edge of the forest. There they handed out supplies, a few tools, some food, water, and a map that showed nothing but danger signs. "This is all you get," the translator said. "No help from us. You may begin now." And with that, the instructors stepped back into their floating platforms and rose into the air, watching from above. The 6 humans stood alone on the red soil of Zyros. "Well," Randy said, looking at the forest ahead, "guess we better start walking." They moved slowly at first, stepping carefully through the dry grass. The air smelled strange, like burnt sugar and wet stone. In the distance, something roared deep and loud. Tanya looked up at the sky. That sound came from far away, probably a big animal. "You sure?" Dana asked. "I've heard worse," Tanya said with a grin. "Back home, we had bears that sounded like that." They walked until the sun began to set behind jagged mountains. The light turned orange and red, casting long shadows across the land. "We should find shelter," Lisa said. "Nightfall means predators come out." Everyone nodded. They had trained for this kind of thing. Survival wasn't just about strength. It was about thinking ahead. They found a small clearing near a stream. The trees here were thick and low to the ground. Kyle and Jason started gathering branches and leaves. "Let's make 2 shelters," Kyle said, "in case one gets destroyed." Dana and Tanya began digging shallow pits around the shelters to keep water from flooding in during the night. Randy and Lisa scouted the area for food. They found a patch of fruit-like plants that Dana sniffed carefully before taking a small bite. "It's sweet," she said, "but my stomach feels okay, probably safe." They ate slowly, saving most of the food for tomorrow. As night fell, the temperature dropped quickly. The wind picked up, and the sounds of the forest grew louder. Something scratched against a tree nearby. Lisa held up a hand. Everyone froze. From the shadows, 2 glowing eyes appeared. It was a creature about the size of a wolf with long limbs and a mouth full of sharp teeth. It sniffed the air and took a step forward. Jason grabbed a stick and lit one end with a flint tool. He waved the fire in front of him. The creature backed off, growled once, then disappeared into the trees. "Great," Randy muttered. "First night and we already have fans." They stayed awake for a while longer, taking turns watching the darkness. Sleep came slowly, but eventually they all drifted off, wrapped in blankets and close to the fire. Above them, the Lithari watched. From their floating stations, they lasted the first night. Varel said quietly. Another Lithari, named Norel, spoke through thought. "Most don't. We shall see if they can last longer." Down below, the humans dreamed of home, of forests and cities, of storms and snow. They didn't know what the next days would bring, but they knew one thing. They were ready. The morning sun rose slowly over Zyros, casting a pale red glow across the land. Birds with long tails and sharp beaks flew overhead, calling out in strange, echoing sounds. The forest around the humans was quiet for now, but they knew better than to relax. Lisa was the first to wake. She sat up slowly, stretching her arms and looking around. The fire had burned down to embers, and the shelters were still standing. Everyone else was asleep except Dana, who had taken the last watch. "Anything happen?" Lisa asked quietly as she walked over. Dana shook her head. "Just some noise in the trees. I think it moved on." Lisa nodded. "Good. Let's get everyone up. We've got work to do." One by one, the others stirred awake. Kyle groaned and rubbed his eyes. Randy stretched and yawned loudly. Jason looked at the sky like he was trying to figure out what time it was. Tanya stood up quickly, already scanning the area. They ate small portions of dried food from their supplies. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep them going until they could find more. "We need water," Jason said after swallowing a bite. "We used most of ours last night." Randy pointed toward the stream they had camped near. "There's that one nearby, but we should find something bigger. Maybe a river." Lisa agreed. "Let's move. We'll follow the stream. If it leads somewhere good, we stay. If not, we find another path." They packed up quickly, leaving no trace behind. They had been trained well. Leave nothing behind. Take only what you need. As they walked through the forest, they saw more signs of life. Strange plants with thick leaves, insects with glowing wings, and tracks in the dirt from animals they hadn't seen yet. After about an hour, they reached the edge of a clearing. There, a Lithari hover platform waited. Varel stood beside it, his tall frame still and silent. "You have survived the first night," he said through the translator drone. "Now, you will learn the rules of survival." The humans stopped and listened. Some of them had expected this. Others weren't sure if it was a test or just more instructions. Varel stepped forward and held out a small device. It projected a holographic image showing different parts of the planet. "This world is divided into zones," he explained. "Each zone presents new dangers. You must survive each one before moving to the next." He touched the image, and it zoomed in on the jungle they were in. The jungle is the first zone. It teaches you how to find shelter, food, and avoid predators. Once you prove you can live here, you may move on. Lisa crossed her arms. How do we prove it? Varel tilted his head slightly. You must complete certain tasks. Build shelter, gather food, survive threats, and mark your progress. Jason raised an eyebrow. So, like a game? In a way, Varel replied. But failure means death. That shut Jason up for a moment. Then Randy spoke. What happens after the jungle? Varel changed the image to show other zones. Desert, tundra, volcanic fields, and even a dark forest filled with flashing lights. These are the stages, he said, each harder than the last. Most species take decades to complete them, all. Lisa looked at her team. They didn't look scared, they looked curious. So, she said, turning back to Varel, where do we start? The Lithari watched them carefully. He had seen many beings react with fear or doubt, but these humans acted like they were ready for anything. You are free to begin, Varel said. No help will be given, no tools, beyond what you already have. With that, the hover platform lifted off and the Lithari left them alone again. Well, Dana said, looking at the jungle ahead. Guess we're doing this. They walked deeper into the forest. The air was warm and wet. Leaves dripped with moisture and the ground was soft underfoot. Kyle found a fallen branch and tested its strength. This could make a good tool. Tanya looked at the vines hanging from the trees. Those could be used for rope. Jason picked up a flat stone. And this? Sharp edges. Could be a knife. Lisa smiled. Looks like we've got a plan. They worked together, gathering materials and making simple tools. By midday, they had built a better shelter using branches and leaves. They made a small fire using dry grass and sticks. Dana set traps using vine loops around small animal paths. By evening, they had caught 2 small creatures that looked like lizards. They cooked them over the fire, careful not to eat too much at once. They also marked their camp with stones and carved symbols into trees so they could find their way back if needed. As night fell, the jungle came alive again. The sounds were louder, closer. Something growled nearby, but the humans didn't panic. They stayed close, kept the fire burning, and took turns watching. From above, the Lithari observed silently. They have built shelter, Norel said, and gathered food. Varel watched the humans through the camera feed. They did it without guidance. Norel blinked slowly. Most take days to learn even basic survival. They did it in hours, Varel replied. Below, the humans talked quietly around the fire. I think we're going to be fine, Randy said. Lisa nodded. Yeah, as long as we keep working together. Above them, the stars shone brightly. Somewhere far away, a creature howled, but the Deathworlders were ready. The third morning on Zyros came with a thick fog that rolled through the jungle like smoke. The air was damp and cool, and the forest was quiet. Too quiet. Lisa was the first to wake again. She sat up slowly, listening. No birds called out. No insects buzzed. Just silence. She stood and looked around the camp. Everything was as they had left it. The shelter still standing, the fire reduced to glowing embers, the traps set along the small animal paths. She nudged Randy awake. Something's off, she whispered. Randy sat up and listened. Then he nodded. They woke the others quickly but quietly. No one spoke at first. They all felt it. The jungle was holding its breath. Then, from deep in the trees, came a low, wet sound, like something heavy dragging across wet leaves. Jason grabbed his sharpened stone tool and stepped closer to the group. We're not alone, he said. From the shadows, a creature stepped into view. It was tall, almost as tall as a man, with dark scaled skin and long limbs. Its eyes were black and unblinking. It sniffed the air and took another slow step forward. Dana reached for a burning stick in the fire and held it out. The creature flinched slightly, then tilted its head, studying them. Tanya whispered, "Don't move fast. Don't show fear." The creature watched them for a few more seconds, then turned and disappeared back into the trees. Everyone let out a breath they hadn't realized they were holding. "What was that?" Dana asked. "No idea," Lisa said. "But we should stay alert." They packed up their camp quickly and moved deeper into the jungle. They needed to find better ground, somewhere safer, where they could plan and prepare. After walking for an hour, they found a small clearing near a stream. There were high rocks around it, making it easier to watch for danger. "This place works," Kyle said. They built a new shelter using branches and vines. This time they made it stronger, tying the poles together tightly and covering it with thick leaves. While Jason and Randy worked on the shelter, Dana and Tanya searched for food. They found strange fruit hanging from a tree nearby. Dana sniffed one. "Smells okay." She took a small bite. "It's sweet," she said, "but kind of bitter after." Tanya tried one too. "Yeah, not bad." They both waited a few minutes. "No sickness." "Looks safe," Tanya said. "Let's gather some." Meanwhile, Kyle and Jason found a flat rock and used smaller stones to make a simple knife. "We can use this to cut meat," Jason said. Randy found a patch of soft dirt and started digging a shallow pit around the shelter. "To keep water away," he explained. Lisa stood guard, watching the trees. She knew they couldn't just survive. They had to learn how to live here. By midday, they had everything set up again. Shelter, tools, food, and fire. They sat down to eat, sharing what they had gathered. "I don't know about you guys," Randy said, chewing on some dried earth food, "but I think we're getting good at this." Jason laughed. "We've only been here 2 days, and already built shelters, made tools, and scared off a monster," Dana added. Lisa smiled. "We adapt fast. That's our strength." Above them, the Lithari watched from their floating stations. Varel studied the data coming from the cameras and sensors placed around the jungle. "They have built better shelters than most species do in weeks," Narelle said, observing the humans below. "And they made tools without being taught," Varel replied. "They are not following any known survival pattern." Norel blinked slowly. "They act like they expect to survive." Varel nodded. "Because they do." Back on the ground, the team finished eating and got back to work. Kyle and Jason went hunting with their traps. They checked each one carefully, resetting them when needed. Tanya and Dana tested different plants, trying to figure out which ones were edible. Randy and Lisa worked on defense, marking escape routes and placing warning signs made of sticks and stones. They didn't waste time. Every hour counted. By evening, they had caught another small lizard-like creature. They cooked it over the fire and ate slowly, saving some for the next day. As night fell, they took turns keeping watch again. No loud noises came from the trees. No glowing eyes appeared in the darkness. For now, they were safe. But they knew better than to get comfortable. Survival wasn't about being lucky. It was about being ready. And the Deathworlders were always ready. The fourth morning on Zyros came with a sky full of red clouds and a warm wind that smelled like wet stone. The jungle was loud again. Birds called from the trees, insects buzzed through the air, and somewhere far off something big crashed through the underbrush. Inside their shelter, the humans woke slowly. Lisa sat up first as usual. She stepped outside and looked around. Everything seemed calm. She called the others awake. One by one, they crawled out of the shelter and stretched. Dana yawned loudly. Randy rubbed his eyes. Jason looked tired but alert. Tanya checked her hands for cuts or bites. Kyle stood up and cracked his back. "Same plan today," Lisa said. "Work, learn, survive." Everyone nodded. They had no idea how long they would be here, but they knew they had to keep going. They ate a small breakfast of dried earth food and some of the fruit they had tested the day before. It tasted better now that they were used to it. Then they got to work. Kyle and Jason went to check the traps again. They found 2 more small lizard-like creatures caught in the loops. "We should make a better trap," Kyle said. "Something that doesn't just catch them by the foot." Jason thought for a moment. What if we use a hole in the ground, cover it with leaves and sticks? Kyle smiled. That could work. Back at camp, Dana and Tanya were studying plants. They had found a few new ones and were testing them carefully. Tanya held up a green root. Smells earthy. Not bad. Dana took a small bite. Tastes bitter but not poison bitter. They both waited 10 minutes, no sickness. Okay, Tanya said. We can eat this in case we run out of meat. Meanwhile, Randy and Lisa worked on tools. They sharpened stones into better blades. They also tied sticks together to make longer spears. We might need these, Lisa said, just in case. Randy grinned. You think we're going to fight something? I think we should always be ready, she replied. By midday, the team regrouped. They shared what they had learned. We made a new kind of trap, Kyle said. We found another edible plant, Dana added. And we've got better tools, Jason said, holding up a spear. Lisa looked around at her team. We're learning fast. They all agreed, and high above them, the Lithari watched closely. Varel studied the data being sent from the cameras and sensors placed throughout the jungle. They have improved their survival methods faster than any other species, he said quietly. Norel blinked slowly. They are only on day 4. Varel nodded. Yes. And already they have built shelters, gathered food, made tools, and adapted to the dangers. Another Lithari, named Thelmar, joined them. This is unusual, Thelmar said. Most beings take weeks to learn even one skill. These humans, Varel said, learn everything at once. Below, the humans continued working. After lunch, they practiced using their new tools. They threw spears at tree trunks and tested the sharpness of their stone knives. They also began marking paths through the jungle so they wouldn't get lost. We should name places, Dana suggested, like Water Rock or Fruit Tree, Hill. That's smart, Lisa agreed. It'll help us remember where things are. They spent the rest of the afternoon exploring nearby areas, looking for better resources. They found a small cave behind a waterfall. It was dry inside and safe from the wind. This could be a backup camp, Tanya said. We should keep it secret, Randy added, in case we need to hide. They left no signs and returned to their main camp before nightfall. As the sun set, they built a bigger fire and sat around it. For the first time, they talked about home. I miss my dog, Dana said with a smile. Miss pizza, Randy laughed. Jason shook his head. I miss my bed. Lisa looked at the fire. I miss my sister, but I know she'd say I'm doing exactly what I should be doing. They all smiled. Even though they were far from Earth, surrounded by danger, they felt strong, because they weren't just surviving. They were growing. And above them, the Lithari watched with growing interest. They are not just adapting, Norel said. They are improving. Varel looked at the screen showing the humans around the fire. Yes, he said. They are becoming more than they were. And for the first time in centuries, the Lithari wondered if they had finally met a species that could match the lessons of Zyros, not over years, but in days. The 5th morning on Zyros came with a strange silence. The jungle was still, like it was waiting for something. Lisa was the first to wake again. She sat up slowly and looked around. The fire had burned down to glowing coals. The others were still asleep, breathing softly under their blankets. She stood and stretched. Her muscles were sore from all the work they'd done, but she felt strong. She walked to the edge of the camp and looked into the trees. Something had changed. The air felt different, lighter, almost expectant. Then she saw it. A small stone tablet had appeared near the stream. It was smooth and flat with glowing symbols carved into its surface. It hadn't been there yesterday. Lisa called out quietly, "Hey, come look at this." One by one, the others woke up and joined her. "What is that?" Dana asked. "It wasn't here last night," Lisa said. Jason stepped closer and studied the symbols. "Looks like some kind of message." Randy picked it up carefully. "Feels warm." Just then, the sky above them shifted. A Lithari hover Platform descended slowly from the clouds. Varel stood at the front, his pale face unreadable. His voice came through the translator drone. You have completed the first survival stage. The humans blinked. What? Randy asked. You built shelter, Varel continued. You gathered food, you survived threats, and you improved your tools. This marks the end of the first challenge. Lisa looked at the others. They had no idea they had already passed anything. So, we're done with this part? Tanya asked. For now, Varel replied. There are more stages ahead. He reached out and the tablet floated up into the air, pulled by invisible force. Then he turned to leave. Wait, Jason said. How long would most people take to do what we did? Varel paused. Most species need months, some take years. The humans exchanged looks. Dana smiled. We only needed 5 days. The hover platform rose higher and disappeared into the sky. For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Kyle laughed. Well, that's cool, I guess. Tanya sat down on a log. I mean, we didn't even know we were being tested. Lisa looked at the jungle around them. We should keep going. If there are more stages, we need to be ready. They packed, up camp quickly. They had learned not to stay in one place too long. Even if they had passed the first test, they knew danger could still find them. As they moved deeper into the jungle, they talked about what had just happened. I thought survival training was supposed to be slow, Randy said. Like learning, step by step. It is, Lisa said. But we've always had to learn fast back home. Storms, accidents, even other people. You don't get time to think when things go wrong. That's why we're good at this, Dana added. We adapt. They kept walking, following the stream as it grew wider and deeper. The trees became taller and the ground softer. By midday, they reached a new clearing, but this one was different. The grass was shorter, the air was cooler, and in the center stood a tall wooden post with a red flag tied to the top. This must be the next checkpoint, Jason said. They approached carefully. There was no sign of danger, but they stayed alert. Lisa touched the post lightly. What now? They waited. Nothing happened. Then from deep in the forest came a low hum, like wind moving through hollow trees, and suddenly the sky darkened. Clouds rolled in fast. The temperature dropped. Rain began to fall. Hard. Within minutes, the ground was soaked. The stream started to rise. We need shelter, Tanya shouted. Over the storm. They ran for cover under a thick group of trees. They pulled leaves and branches over themselves to block the rain. Kyle wiped water from his face. This isn't normal weather. No, Lisa agreed. This feels like a test. Above them, hidden by the storm, the Lethari watched. Varel stood on another hover platform, studying the humans below. They reacted instantly, Narelle said. They found cover before panic set in. Thelmar observed them closely. They move like a unit. No arguing, no hesitation. Varel nodded. They are used to chaos. Back on the ground, the storm raged for hours. But the humans stayed calm. They shared warmth, checked each other for injuries, and waited it out. When the rain finally stopped, the sky cleared. Everything smelled fresh. The trees dripped with water. The birds started singing again. They stood up, shook off the wet leaves, and looked around. Well, Randy said with a grin. Guess we passed that one too. Lisa smiled. Let's see what's next. They walked forward, leaving the storm behind. Behind them, the Lethari recorded everything. These humans, Varel said quietly, are not like any species we have seen. Norelle blinked slowly. They do not fear failure. No, Varel agreed, because they expect to survive. And so, with the first challenge behind them, the Deathworlders took their next steps into the unknown, without fear, without doubt, only forward. Back on the Lethari homeworld, far from Zyros and its wild jungles, a meeting was taking place. The Great Council Hall was a massive room with curved walls and glowing symbols floating in the air. Tall, pale Lithari sat in a circle, their minds connected through silent thought. They did not speak out loud. They shared thoughts like threads in a web. At the center of the hall stood Varel, the lead observer of the human's survival test. He floated slightly above the floor, as all Lithari did when giving reports. "We have completed our first full analysis," he sent into the group mind. "The Earthlings finished the jungle stage in 5 days. No other species has ever done that." A pause filled the room, though no one spoke. Then came a sharp reply from Elder Norel. "You are saying these humans passed what takes others years? In days?" Varel nodded slowly. "Yes. And they did it without panic, without special training, and without guidance." Another elder, Thelmar, shared a thought filled with doubt. "This must be an error. Perhaps they skipped steps, or the system failed to track them properly." "No," Varel replied. "They followed every rule. They built shelter, gathered food, made tools, survived threats, and improved themselves, all while staying calm and working together." Silence again. Then came a new thought, this time from outside the hall. It was from the Galactic News Network, a system used by many alien races to share discoveries and updates across the stars. Breaking report. Humans complete first stage of Zyros survival course in record time. The word spread quickly. On trade worlds where ships stopped for fuel and rest, aliens talked about it over drinks. In classrooms where young beings learned about other species, teachers paused their lessons to explain what had happened. On warships and mining colonies, crew members read the news and wondered what it meant. Earth had always been seen as a strange, dangerous world. But now, people were starting to see the humans in a new way. Some saw them as dangerous, others saw them as useful, and a few, very quietly, saw them as something else entirely. Powerful. Across the galaxy, leaders began to react. On the planet Zarnak, the ruling council met in secret. One leader, a heavy-bodied creature with red eyes and 6 arms, said through a translator, "If these humans can survive Zyros so fast, imagine what they could do on a battlefield." Another agreed. "They should not be allowed free travel, not yet." Meanwhile, on the peaceful world of Kalara, a group of scientists studied the footage from Zyros. "They don't act like most trainees," one said. "They don't wait for instructions. They just do things. Like they've done this before," another added. "But they haven't," said the lead researcher. "Not here. Not on any other world." "So where did they learn?" asked the first. Back on Earth, the news arrived late at night. The United Nations Space Authority received the report from the Lithari. It was short and simple. Human team has completed jungle stage of survival course ahead of schedule. At the space agency's headquarters, a small group of officials read the message over and over. One of them, a woman named Director Collins, leaned back in her chair. She smiled. "Well," she said, "I guess we knew they were tough. Now the galaxy knows too." But not everyone on Earth was happy. Military leaders read the report with concern. One general frowned as he looked at the data. "They're calling them Deathworlders. That's not good." Another officer nodded. "It makes them sound like warriors." "That's exactly what it's doing," the general replied. "And now the galaxy thinks they're unstoppable." Far away, on a luxury ship orbiting a gas giant, a rich alien businessman watched the news. He wore golden robes and had jewels embedded in his skin. He turned to his assistant. "Send a message to my contact on Zyros. I want those humans hired. Whatever they cost, double it." His assistant bowed. "For what purpose?" The man smiled. "Exploration, rescue missions, maybe even private security." "They're not soldiers," the assistant said. "No," the businessman agreed. "But they might be better than soldiers." Below him, in the cold dark of space, messages flew between planets. Some warned of danger, some offered jobs, and some simply asked the same question: who are these humans, and why are they so good at surviving? Back on Zyros, the jungle was quiet again. The humans had passed the first stage of survival quickly. too quickly for the Lithari's comfort. From their high-floating platforms, Varel and his team watched the Earthlings move deeper into the wild. They had already proven they could survive the jungle, but now the test would get harder, because not all lessons were learned through time. Some came through stress. And so, a decision was made. Up in the control station above the planet, the Lithari leaders gave a silent order, a mental command that traveled instantly across their network. Begin Phase 2. Down below, nothing seemed to change at first. The humans kept moving, setting up a new camp near a rocky ridge. They built better shelters than before, using stone and branches to make them sturdier. They placed traps around the camp and marked escape paths just in case. They didn't know it yet, but the next part of the test had already begun. That night, the wind changed. It grew cold fast, and the sky turned dark with heavy clouds. But this wasn't normal weather. Jason was the first to notice. "This doesn't feel right," he said, looking up at the sky. Lisa stood beside him. "Yeah, like something's about to happen." Then came the sound. A low rumble from deep in the ground. Then another. And suddenly, the earth shook. Not gently. Hard. Trees swayed like they were dancing. Rocks rolled down hills. The stream nearby began to rise fast, spilling over its banks as if the land itself had been startled awake. "A quake!" Randy shouted. "Move!" Lisa ordered. They ran for higher ground, slipping on wet leaves, dodging falling branches. Dana tripped and fell, scraping her arm on a sharp rock. Jason pulled her up. "Come on!" They reached a flat area on top of some rocks just as the shaking stopped. Everyone was breathing hard. "What the hell was that?" Tanya asked. Kyle looked back toward their old camp. Water was rushing through it now. "That wasn't natural," he said. "Earthquakes don't just come out of nowhere like that." Lisa narrowed her eyes. Maybe it was a test. Above them, hidden by thick clouds, Varel watched from his hover platform. They reacted correctly. Narelle sent into the shared mind. They found safety before panic set in. Thelmar replied slowly, "We have never seen a species handle sudden disaster this well." Varel didn't respond. He was still watching the humans below. They were checking injuries, sharing water, talking quietly. No anger, no fear, just calm action. But the test wasn't over. The second phase had only just begun. The next morning, the rain started. Not light rain, heavy storm-like rain. The kind that pounded the trees and turned the ground into mud. The humans stayed inside their shelter, waiting it out. "We can't stay here long," Dana said. "If this keeps going, we'll be flooded." "We need to find higher ground," Lisa agreed. So after the rain slowed, they packed up and moved. They followed the river uphill where the land was drier. They built a new shelter under a group of thick, leafy trees. But not long after they settled, trouble found them again. This time it came in the form of movement, lots of it. From the trees, shadows moved quickly. Then came the sounds. Growls, snaps, scrapes against bark. Randy raised his spear. "We're not alone." Lisa motioned silently for everyone to stay close. Out of the forest came creatures, wolf-like, with glowing eyes and long teeth. They didn't charge. They just watched, waiting. Tanya whispered, "They're testing us." Lisa nodded. "Don't move fast. Don't show weakness." The humans stood together holding their tools. No one backed down. After a few tense moments, the creatures turned and disappeared back into the trees. Silence returned. Only then did everyone breathe again. Dana looked at Lisa. "Why do I feel like someone made those things come here?" Lisa didn't answer right away. She looked up at the sky. "I think," she said slowly, "someone did." And she was right. Back in the control room, the Lithari leaders were watching everything. "They handled the quake," Thelmar said. "The flood. Now the predator pack." Norell added, "Each challenge was meant to raise stress levels, to see how they react under pressure. And they passed every one," Varel finished. There was a pause. Then an older Lithari, named Elian, spoke. What happens if they pass all the tests? No one answered, because no one knew. Below, the humans sat around a small fire eating dried food and talking. We've been here 6 days, Jason said, and I feel like we've lived a month. Randy laughed. Feels like we're being watched. We are, Dana said. I just don't think it's just the Lithari anymore. They all looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, others were watching too, and they were learning what Earthlings could do, how they acted when danger came fast, how they worked together without fear, and most importantly, how they never gave up even when the world tried to break them. Because Deathworlders weren't just survivors, they were built for this. After the storm and the Predator encounter, the humans moved to higher ground. They found a flat area near a rocky outcrop that gave them a clear view of the jungle below. They built a new camp quickly, not just for shelter but for safety. The sky above Zyros was still red, but the air felt quieter now. The jungle no longer seemed to watch them as closely. For the first time in days, they had peace. Inside their simple shelter made of branches and leaves, the 6 Earthlings sat around a small fire. Dana cleaned her scraped arm with water from their last full canteen. We've been here 7 days, Lisa said quietly, and we've already done more than anyone expected. Randy leaned back against a log. Feels like a month. Jason nodded. Feels like we're being tested harder every day. Tanya looked at the others. I think we are. Not just by the Lithari, by something bigger. Lisa agreed. Yeah, I think someone else is watching too. Outside, the wind picked up again. But this time it wasn't nature making the noise. From the sky came a sound they recognized. The deep hum of a hovercraft. Moments later, Varel arrived. His pale form floated slightly above the ground as he stepped off the platform. Behind him stood another Lithari named Norel. The translator drone hovered beside them. You have completed the jungle stage of the survival course, Varel said through the device. You also passed the stress trials we introduced. Lisa crossed her arms. We didn't know those were part of the test. They were added to see how you react under pressure, Norel explained. Most species panic, some refuse to go on. The humans exchanged looks. Randy shrugged. Well, we kept going. Varel studied them carefully. Yes, you did, he paused before speaking again. There is debate among our kind, he continued. Some believe Earthlings should be granted full accreditation immediately. Dana blinked. Full accreditation? Norel nodded. It means your species would be allowed to take any survival course without supervision. It marks you as one of the most adaptable beings in the galaxy. That's big, Kyle said slowly. It is, Varel agreed. But not all agree. Lisa narrowed her eyes. Why not? Varel looked away for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. Some fear what your kind could become. Silence fell over the group. Then Tanya asked, What do you think? Varel turned to face her directly. I think you are not like other species we have trained. You do not wait for instructions. You act, you learn, and you survive. He looked at each of them. You make choices based on experience, not rules. Lisa smiled slightly. That's because back home there's no time for rules when things go wrong. Varel nodded. That is why you are dangerous. The word hung in the air, not in a bad way, in a real way, because it was true. To the galaxy, Earth had always been a mystery, a violent world with strange, unpredictable people. But now, after only a week on Zyros, the humans had proven something deeper. They weren't just tough. They were different. And some feared that difference. Back on the Lithari homeworld, debates were already happening. In the Great Council Hall, leaders from across the coalition of advanced species gathered to discuss what to do next. The humans passed the jungle stage in 5 days, one elder said. They handled extreme weather, earthquakes, floods, and predator threats, all within 1 week. Another leader from the Zarnak trade fleet asked, "Are they safe to allow into the wider galaxy?" A scientist from Kalara replied, "They pose no danger unless threatened, but they are powerful." A third voice, older and more cautious, "Powerful species change the balance of power. We must decide if Earth should be fully included in interstellar society." Some argued for open contact and cooperation. Others warned that humans were too wild, too fast, too hard to control. And then came the final question. Should we allow Earth to continue testing its citizens, or should we restrict access to our training worlds? There was silence. Then came a message from Varel himself. These humans did not cheat. They did not ask for help. They simply survived as if the world itself was made for them. Perhaps, he ended, it was. Meanwhile, on Earth, the news spread even faster than before. At the United Nations Space Authority, officials read the latest report from the Lithari. Human team has exceeded all expectations during survival trial. Further assessment required. Director Collins read it twice. Then she smiled. "Well," she said to the room, "looks like they made an impression." One of her assistants frowned. "Do you think this will cause problems?" She shook her head. "Only if we let it." Nearby, a military officer watched the reports with concern. "This isn't just about survival anymore," he muttered. "Now, everyone knows what Earthlings can do." His colleague nodded. "And they're starting to wonder what else we're capable of." Back on Zyros, the humans packed up camp once more. They weren't sure what came next, but they knew one thing. They hadn't just come to survive. They had come to prove who they were, and the galaxy was finally starting to listen.